Welcome to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, where we aim to break down barriers, demystify blindness, and promote real and lasting change. Join host David Steinmetz as he connects us with professionals who are making a positive impact in the community. These leaders help empower individuals who are blind or have other disabilities to live a full and inclusive life. Let's lean in as David kicks off today's conversation.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time. I'd like to first and foremost thank Arizona Industries for the Blind, an enterprise nonprofit organization empowering people who are blind or visually impaired to achieve their version of the American dream by creating and sustaining employment. The show is really focused around how do we change people's perceptions, right? The way that we grew up, our family values, norms, society norms, and such to in our way. So if we see the world in one way, then that's typically how we interact in that world. Through the show, I hope to engage people and find ways to kind of make them question what that reality is, what really is blindness. And for a lot of people, it's, oh, my grandfather was blind and, he hung around the house and whittled wood on the front porch. And that is some people's grandpas. Other people's grandpas are out skiing or engaging in bocce ball or whatever it may be and living the life that they want to live in that capacity. And so we always have to stop and think about not from only our own perspective, but from other people's perspectives and what a good life is, or good work, or good jobs are to help further us, maybe even not just from a local level, but as a society level. And in order to do so, we need change agents. We need people that are in the community working every day to foster that change. And there's been a lot of conversations and articles and positive results out of having these conversations, right? There's the Accenture report that comes out and does a study of organizations that have a disability focus and hiring people with disabilities. And they, always report higher net income, higher revenues, improved culture. They build this model about inclusion for all and having that. It's important to highlight those organizations like those in the study, or like Arizona Industries for the Blind and other organizations that really look at what people's talents are and utilize those talents to help further the overall mission of the organization. And whether you're a nonprofit organization or for profit, all these things lead to empowerment of people who are blind. And one of the things that is critical in this pathway of perceptions and changing these perceptions is the use of assistive technology. And it is a great leveler in terms of inclusion into all facets of society, and also whether it's work or at home, being engaged at a sporting event or the theater, having the access to the visual elements of the event is so important to creating that inclusion. And I'm really, really excited to have some really knowledgeable subject matter experts in this area. And I think we're going to have a wonderful conversation around technology, and who else knows where this conversation's going to go. So I'm really excited, and I'll go ahead and ask Anat if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving yourself an introduction, and we'll go from there.
Hi, David. Hi, Seth. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me to participate in this interesting conversation. My name is Anat Nolman, and I'm the founder of Assistive.consulting. I have been working in assistive technology industry for about close to 11 years, working for large brands. And last year, I decided to start my own consulting business and help emerging companies bring their assistive technology to market.
Thank you, Anat. And we connected many years ago, and have continued to find we're in the same space often and enjoy catching up with you. And I'm really excited from your perspective bringing in new technology and helping organizations get to market and getting the products into the hands of people that need it. And I think that's part of your tagline, right? Uh,
Absolutely.
so it's really exciting, and I look forward to having you here. Seth, let you give yourself an intro, please.
Hi, my name is Seth LeBlond, and I am the Assistive Technology Coordinator at the Foundation for Blind Children. That basically means I work in several different departments. I teach assistive technology to blind adults, to students, to teachers of the visually impaired. I work in the IT department, helping to service the assistive technology that we have in the field with students and staff. I also work for a program called CAT that has a train the trainer model. So we teach teachers how to teach technology, which is a little bit different than how to use it. And I also help to administer a program that is funded by Major League Baseball to help students around the state of Arizona get the technology that they need. I've been in this field for 25 years. It'll be 25 years in July. Seems like a long time. And I've basically been on every side of it. I've worked in the retail environment, worked in the on the manufacturing side, on the training side. So I've been in this assistive technology field for quite some time, and I have a real passion for helping blind people to achieve those dreams that they have, whatever they may be.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Seth. And Seth and I have connected and through our organizations and our brown bag lunch and learns at Arizona Industries for the Blind. Seth came in and did a session on using a smartphone for people who are blind and personality, the ease that he makes learning something new or something that could be frustrating and challenging to someone, putting us at ease when we're trying to navigate these apps and so forth. So I'm really excited to have two really knowledgeable people, but not only knowledgeable but fun and great conversationalists. So thank you both for being here. It's really exciting. So as we were kind of talking at the beginning of the show about leveling the playing field in technology, and Seth, you said you've been on all facets of from retail to manufacturing and training and teaching. What has changed in technology, assistive technology? Maybe we should even before we get there is maybe define what assistive technology is.
I would say assistive technology is any tool that enables people with disabilities to perform everyday tasks that people without disabilities can perform without the specialized tool. There's just a lot more to it than that, but I think that maybe is the simplest definition I can think of. So that's how I'd define it.
Awesome, thank you. Now, anything you want to add to in terms of kind of defining assistive technology?
I think Seth got it. The only thing I would like to add is, there's a difference between kind of mainstream technology and assistive technology. And assistive technology has been designed specifically for people with disabilities, where mainstream technology fails to support them in their daily living and their work and their education and basically their everyday life.
Well, that's interesting. Because when I think about that, I think a lot of times assistive technology often lends itself to other tools. For people who are blind, have used cell phones for a long time, where you had to get a third party app to engage with the applications and so forth. And then as time and technology grew, the mobile device manufacturer started building this technology in. I don't wonder if it's the other way around, where assistive technology leads to spurs to new innovations for general, like hopefully nobody has their smart speaker on, but that lady in the box, Alexa, does, does
There
one
it
lead
goes now. Just kidding.
does one lead to the other, and these advancements or something? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think there are certain technologies that were developed with a particular and maybe narrow use in mind, maybe to help people with certain disabilities. For example, OCR, which stands for optical character recognition, that technology has been around for a really long time, and it's been used in military settings and big industries in banking in all kinds of ways. It really became big in the blindness community because it allows to for a device or an app or a gadget to really scan text and read it aloud for somebody who can't see it or can't read because they may have other condition that prevents them from being able to read. And for example, when I go to CES, which is Consumer Electronics Show that happens every year, which is the largest consumer electronics show, until recently, OCR technology was dominating kind of the blindness and disabilities exhibits. And the last year, it has changed because OCR technology became mainstream, right? You can take a picture with your iPhone or your Android of a text, and you can click on that picture and it'll read it back to you, which is pretty exciting. It's something that hasn't existed. So I think regular technology and assistive technology that play together and go back and forth. And sometimes assistive technology becomes more of a mainstream, and sometimes assistive technology really fills the gaps where the mainstream technology cannot help people with specific disabilities.
I would agree with that. If you go on YouTube, you can find a CBS clip with Walter Cronkite talking to Ray Kurzweil. And I think it was 1975, the first reading machine.
Mm-hmm.
And the only 1974 is when he started with the thing, but I think the news segment is from 1975, and they've got this artificial voice. Now this is amazing, right? In the 1970s, you imagine that. But the only application that people could see for it at the time was to help people who couldn't read. And now we have exactly what you just mentioned, and you take a picture of something and tell your phone to translate it into a different language now, and it happens instantaneously. So I think that's a great example of where assistive technology has led. Another example of where I feel like assistive technology got the jump. Any of us who are old enough to remember having had a Braille and Speak, David, from a company called Blazy Engineering. It was developed in 1986. It was the first note taker with a Braille keyboard that we could all get our hands on. And I had one of these things in the early 90s. Nobody else had a note taker, right? Like a PDF. Sighted person didn't have access to, there weren't a whole lot of devices available at that time. Maybe like entry-level rudimentary organizers or something like that. But I feel like I had a PDA, like a personal digital assistant, way before any of the sighted people I knew. That was kind of an early example too of assistive technology kind of taking the lead.
I think another example of kind of assistive technology helping everybody else, not necessarily people with specific disabilities, but community in general, is, for example, audiobooks. I'm fully sighted and I'm an avid book reader, but my eyesight is not that great. And reading actually gives me headaches. So I can't read, especially after working all day in front of the computer. So I really prefer listening to books. But one of the things that I picked up from my blind friends is the ability to listen on high speed and become more efficient. And obviously, it took a lot of practice and several years, but now I read at 2.5 speed, and I can go through the book a lot faster. I can also listen to the book while I wash the dishes, while I drive, while I do other things, while I walk my dog. So I don't necessarily need to sit down and read a book. So it created this level of efficiency in reading books, even though I read them for pleasure, that I really picked up from my blind friends.
Yeah. And that's one of those things too. I think, like what our 1931, I believe, is when these books started becoming available through the National Library Service for the blind. So, I mean, and back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, sighted people didn't listen to audiobooks. It
Mhm.
was a blindness specific thing, but everybody started to see the value in it. That's a great example too.
Yeah, and that's where from a development side or from a usability side and so forth is, and I wonder, as Not said, sometimes the assistive technology is filling a gap that other advances are not. That we use this business process, but there's one piece missing, and we have to develop that other piece of technology that allows me, as a person who is blind, to be able to access it or engage with it, whatever, however you want to phrase it. Where or when should companies, when they're thinking about this new revolutionary technology that they're going to create and take over the world with, in the where should these conversations be? Is okay, what are we missing to make sure that everybody's going to be able to use this?
I think, well, should and will may be two different questions, but we used to call it universal design. We call it inclusive design now. People should think about it from the moment that they have an idea. But the reality is that most people out there have never even met a visually impaired person, and if they have, it's been that you opened the show by talking about the blind grandpa who was amazing because he could go fishing or something like that. That's a lot of people's experience with visually impaired people. I would say even fewer people have experience with like working alongside a visually impaired person.
Mhm.
And that's not because we're not working, it's because we're a very tiny minority. We're a few percent of the population. And so they should think of it right away, but they're not thinking about it because they just don't even think about blind people or disabled people, visually impaired people. They're not thinking about it because it's not front and center in their consciousness. So I think that in this day and age, I think people are more receptive than ever to including people. I just think they aren't always even aware of what they need to be including.
Hmm.
And I think you're spot on this, Seth. I met first visually impaired person when I was 18. And she actually ended up changing my life. We became, best friends. We met in college. And she approached me and she said, I can't see what's happening on the whiteboards. Do you mind if I copy your notes? And I said, of course. And I didn't even realize she's visually impaired until she told me shortly thereafter. And then the second visually impaired person I've met, I was in my 30s and she was my colleague in the office. And then about 11 years ago, the same girlfriend called me and she said, I'm working for this really amazing company that really changes people's lives. Do you want to come and help us? And that's how I got into assistive technology.
Hmm.
I said yes because I had to travel around the country and train beta users with this new revolutionary product, and that was really exciting for me. But that's when I started meeting a lot more, or meeting many people who are visually impaired, blind, or people have low vision, and that opened a completely new world that I didn't know existed. And like you're saying, many sighted people, we don't think about inclusive design because we're just not exposed to it. And I think part of our job of people who are really close to our industry and part of the community is to educate everybody else. And if
Mhm.
we do design, you were absolutely right saying, what we should do versus what we're actually doing. We should include accessibility for a person with any abilities or any disability to be able to access the same information as a person without any disabilities. But it's not happening because sometimes we just don't think about it. And that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I can imagine how expensive it is to either go back and fix something, right? I continue to reach out to a company, a global company that manufactures my sprinkler timer. Something very simple that I purchased it because I can control it with my phone. It's a digital display. If I want to adjust the water cycles or time, I have to get somebody else to do it because the app is not accessible. And I've been sending them screenshots and screen recordings and doing all these things, and they're trying to go back and redo the app. So they're working with their developers, and I think they told me that yes, we did test it and it worked just fine with Android and iOS, but they didn't understand how I, as a person who's blind, using the actual app, have to, swipe or flick to actually activate the controller. And when they actually saw me doing it, then they're like, "Oh, yes, I see where this is now." Something pops up over the button that you need to, tap on, and you can't get to it. So it's got to be
At the same timer, David.
if it's something, I don't want to say it's as simple as a sprinkler timer, but think about all the things in life, right? Or as a child who is blind or low vision that needs assistance in note taking, or college or work, going to the grocery store, just in all the areas and facets of life. If those who are producing products or hiring people is, first of all, what is it that I don't know? Identify those things through different conversations, and there's lots of organizations that can help you through that process. Engage in that community that you're targeting or trying to look at, and getting that feedback up front so that um, you don't have to go back and work with your developer to try and fix something that's broken.
I want to mention here, we are still living in a world where, I mean, I've been on different blogs and commenting on, I've no shortage of opinions on almost everything. And so I've been on blog sites and commenting on people's blogs. And if I reference that I'm blind, I will invariably get, "You must be lying, because if you were blind, you wouldn't be able to be on this website."
Yeah.
That's the world we live in, you guys. I mean, people like a fair number. I'm not prepared to say a majority of people believe that, but a significant number of sighted people believe to this day that if you have a vision impairment, there's no way for you to go online and access a computer at all. So, I'm still educating, and then we get in the whole thing about how I'm not really a troll, and I mean, who would lie about that? Come on,
Right.
but like, that's where the general public is sometimes. And sometimes, and that isn't an excuse, but it is a reality. And that's kind of, a major, I think, hurdle for us, is even just getting people to understand, yeah, we are actually using this technology. How can you use that phone?
Right.
Well, you have voiceover on there yourself. Look in your accessibility. You've never even explored your own phone. Look in your accessibility settings. There's all this stuff in there that they've never looked at because they don't need it. Well, I don't look at the stuff on my phone that I don't need.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
So like in a way, although we do want this inclusive design, in a way, there's an element of unfairness at some level, expecting the average sighted person to be like focused on our needs. Like that's not on the forefront of their mind. We are not at the center of their little universe.
So true. And obviously having this conversation today, right, is how do we connect to those people and make those changes, and sometimes you have to advocate. You have to use your voice and call the company and say, "Hey, this is not working." And I can't be the only one. Now I know there's two. Seth and I can throw your name out there, and I'm sure they're going, "Oh, okay, we better get it going," if you know Seth LeBlanc. So having the conversations and getting people with disabilities into the conversation early is what I'm hearing, and thinking about that inclusive design, um, from the digital footprint to the physical world, and making sure that those opportunities are available to everybody. I know you work a lot with companies that are launching products, a lot of startups and technologies coming in from around the world, and then people are working to try and fill these gaps and solve some of these issues. From the product development side, again, kind of go back to that, is where do you think that they're coming up, getting this idea that says this piece is missing here, I'm going to fill it in, trying to help solve that issue?
That question of should and will, or should and do,
Mhm.
is permeating everywhere. I would say that majority of the companies that build assistive technology come from the right place, and they either have a personal experience, living with blindness, either themselves, their family members, or their dear ones, or they just see a business opportunity with a particular technology and they see an application that can benefit people with specific disabilities. Um, I think for companies that develop assistive technology, for companies that develop any technology, but specifically assistive technology, it is critical that people with the disabilities that they're trying to help are involved from the get-go. They're involved in all aspects of the organization, both in product development, but also operations, customer service, and everywhere else. And then they become part of our community, not pushing products to the community, but really become one, and to understand and network, right? Because you need to understand what features to develop, right? What functionality to develop to
Mhm.
help people that you want to develop. But you also need to understand how to get in their hands, understand the funding, if there's funding available,
Mhm.
understand, what organizations do you need to work with to make it available to people so they can find it. Yes, you can put it on Amazon, which a lot of people do, and that's great, but that's not enough, right? So it's how do you access the technology and how you develop this technology, and then how do you support your users in a meaningful way? So all of those things are critical. And one of the things that I do advise my clients is you can't operate in vacuum. You need to be
Mhm.
part of our ecosystem, and you need to be integral part of it, not just somebody
Mhm.
from the outside.
Very true. Seth, were you going to say something? And wanna?
I was not.
Oh,
I thought
okay.
you summed that up pretty well.
Awesome. Well, it's true, because I think a lot of times, there's so much new advancing technology, and AI is the big thing now, and it's gonna, solve or take over the world. I'm not sure which one. Solve our problems or take over the world. All the things that you can do with it, with that technology, or people trying to reinvent the cane or other mobility devices, or you're looking at other readers and things like that. And do we, is there a point where there's too much? Is there a point where we say, you know, is it a user issue? Is it a societal problem? In terms of, I'll use myself for example. If I'm crossing the street, and I'm not using my guide dog, and I'm using my cane, there are times where I may veer, or kind of slowly veer off the center of the crosswalk towards one edge or the other, and I still land at the curb. I use my orientation skills and my mobility skills to kind of know that I'm veering or drifting a little bit and try and bring myself back, and things like that. If I had a piece of technology that would alert me that I'm drifting, are we solving the right problem with technology? I guess maybe is the question. And I love that all the things that are out there, but sometimes I think, is it me as a person, navigating the world, or is it because the world is not set up for me and I have to use this other piece of technology?
I
Oh,
kind of go
go
ahead.
ahead,
Sorry
Seth.
about that.
No, go
Oh, I
ahead.
was going to say that's kind of an age-old question, right? At what point does our responsibility to learn skills sort of merge with the availability of technology? There actually is a piece of technology that does what you suggest. There's an app for iPhone. I don't know if it's available for Android yet. It might be, um, but it's called OKO, and it's a European developer that develops this. And what you do with it is you use the phone camera actually locates the crossing signal, and you kind of hold your phone up against your chest. You could put it on a lanyard if that works better for you. And as you're in the crosswalk, it can tell that you're like straight on to the traffic signal, and it gives you vibrations that tell you when it's safe to cross the street. And when you stop feeling the vibration, that's how you know you're actually out of line with the crossing signal. So this technology is coming, and that app actually works pretty well at day or night, and for any intersection that's actually a controlled intersection. But more broadly speaking, I'm always that guy that's hesitant to allow technology to control sort of what I do. So I want to be able to go for that walk if I forgot my phone, or if if the battery dies and because I forgot to charge it. Or we always used to say, if the technology fails, this is how long I've been in the field, right? Because the failure rate of technology is actually really low, comparative to how it used to be. But I think this isn't necessarily just a question for the visually impaired. This is a question for everybody. How much do you want to rely on artificial intelligence to perform the tasks that we used to perform? I mean, before all this technology, we all still walked around. I mean, I was walking around in the '90s with no GPS and no technology to tell me if I was outside the crosswalk and doing all these things. I think it's a more fundamental question about how much you want the AI to do for you. Obviously, when it comes down to taking a picture with a program like Be My Eyes or something like that, the free software, to tap on something, to take a picture of I don't know, the box of a frozen dinner or something, and have it tell you how to cook it. That is really like something we cannot do without that technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, it comes down to, could I reasonably expect to get this thing done efficiently and safely without the technology? If the answer is yes, then I want to retain control of that myself. If the answer is no, then that's kind of where that comes into for me, because these AI products are not infallible. They hallucinate. That's what the official term is. They will actually tell you that stuff is not there when it is, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
They do not get things 100% right. I mean, I have a picture of myself uphold a certificate of completion for a technology training that I got. It's up on the web, probably everywhere. And if you get Be My AI to tell you, it says I'm wearing glasses. I've been wearing glasses since I was 11 years old.
Hmm.
I'm not wearing glasses in the picture, and that's a very, very simple example. But honestly, if you have to rely exclusively on any technology, artificial intelligence or otherwise, to handle all of your business, then you're kind of at its mercy. And if it does make a mistake, sometimes it's just funny, like, that's not really wearing glasses, haha. But if it told you it was safe to cross the street and you started crossing and there was a car
Mm-hmm.
coming, you got yourself nailed, that wouldn't be a laughing matter. So
Right.
I like to take responsibility for myself and what I do as much as possible.
Right. And I think, Seth, what you're saying resonates with many people, but there are others who say, you know what? I can rely on technology. It's available. Why not? I'll give you an example. So many years ago, when I worked in a different industry, I went to Hong Kong for work. And that was before cell phones, before GPS. And I had 5 meetings scheduled during that day, different parts of the island. And I was late to my first one because I took the wrong train stop. And so all of my meetings derailed. And I still remember and agonize over it. I had to find a public phone and try to call them, figure out how to do a phone call in Hong Kong, and basically kind of push all of my meetings. And it was very, very stressful. Now, if that happened, I would send them an email or send them a text message or phone call from my email very quickly. And I may not have even gotten to that situation because I do have GPS on my smartphone. So I think technology could be incredibly valuable. Now, as far as your example, David, with navigation, in addition to Oko, which is a fantastic app, there is also the traditional white cane that became smarter, and it's called Walk Smart Cane. And in fact, their second generation is coming out in a couple of months. And it has a built-in GPS, and you can talk to it. It has AI, so you can say things like, for example, take me to Applebee's restaurant, and it will navigate you to it. And then when you sit down, you can say, hey, are there any dishes with chicken? Or tell me the desserts. So it becomes a lot more than just a navigation device. It becomes kind of your personal assistant. As far as hallucinations and making mistakes, I don't think I don't think we can expect any technology to be fail proof. It's just not realistic. But as Seth said, the failure rate and it has declined over the years. And I haven't been doing it for 25 years. I've been only doing it for close to 11, but it's even in my years of working with assistive technology, I have seen it, leaps and bounds in terms of improvements and also the scope of things that it can do. So another example, for example, is Envision glasses or the Envision app that's also available. It started with just reading capabilities, that OCR that we talked about earlier. But now you can describe a scene. It has AI features that you can ask questions. You can scan a text, and then you can you can ask things like, what are some of the main sections of the document? Or, let's say you're scanning in HR manual, and you can say, tell me about the vacation policy. How many days of vacation can I have? So you don't have to read the entire document. You can just ask specific questions. And that, as a sighted person, I would love to, because sometimes I don't want to read the entire text, right? So this is an example of technology that's been developed for people who are visually impaired, right? For a very small group, but something that everybody can benefit from. And I think that's the beauty of it. Is what we talked about earlier, is that we develop technology for people with specific needs, but then many other people can use that technology. I saw an emerging technology yesterday that has really exciting indoor navigation. And one of the examples that they show is how a blind person navigates an airport. And it asked the person, he asked, what gate my flight is leaving from. How much time, or when is it leaving? Oh, I have time. Let me go get a cup of coffee. Can you navigate me to, a coffee shop? Right? I would love to use that too. If I'm in a new airport, that's huge. I wouldn't mind relying on technology. I'm perfectly able to do it on my own, but it may take me a long time. So I think there's this balance between wanting to be independent and relying on your own senses, which I think is incredibly important. But I'm one of those people that if I can get help, I'll get it. I don't mind getting it.
So true. And it is important there's certainly a balance in terms of how it is. And we talked about inclusive design, and I certainly want to have the same tools or the same opportunity to use a piece of technology or things that are the latest and greatest. I certainly would want to use that as well. And it's up to me to learn how to use it. And I think that's where sometimes I kind of look back and forth and go both ways. It's like there's some personal responsibility. Do I really care if I'm on TikTok? No, I don't care. That's the greatest thing. But if I wanted to go on, I want to make sure that I can. And that's, I guess, where we have to kind of define in terms of let's build it for everybody. And if you want to use it, it's there. If you don't, then you don't. We don't build things that we don't try and create problems or the solution for problems that maybe aren't a real problem.
I think this has really touched on a really important point. And I do want to clarify too. Um, I use this artificial intelligence technology all the time. I'm definitely not anti-AI. It is transforming my life. It has enabled me to see my child for the first time, essentially. Like it is opening doors. So, but that's for me. That's the key, right? It's allowing me to do it for the first time. There's no other way for me to do it. And not only that, but even if there is no other, if there's some other way, but it's 10 times harder, why would I pick the consistently the method that's 10 times harder? My caveat is, I'm going to use the technology if there's no other way to do this, to perform the same task efficiently and safely. That's kind of what I apply to it. But we've touched on a very important point, which is goes back to something you asked earlier about inclusive design. How do we get people involved in the mainstream earlier?
Mm-hmm.
And this is how we develop something that is helpful for everyone, that happens to have properties that lend themselves well to assistive technology. So we're kind of, in some ways, we've been doing it a little bit backwards. We're saying, let's develop this assistive tool, and we're going to go with our, small company, our 10-person company, or 100-person company, whatever it happens to be. And we're going to develop this thing specifically for the blind, and we're going to get funding based on how it helps blind and visually impaired folks. And we're going to go to Congress and ask for some money, or we're going to get grants, or however we're going to do it. Instead, we could say, hey, we have this really good idea for this technology that's going to help the general public and like open up a world of funding and investors. Investors don't care so much. Investors want to make money, right?
Yep.
So you want to get funding to develop a product and bring a product to market. The best way to do it is make it relevant to as many people as possible, because then the investors are going to see those dollar signs. And instead of making a specialized product as an assistive technology company, you have actually made a product that, in your dreams, this is an assistive technology product, but in practical application, everybody wants to be more efficient when they're walking through the airport. And this is how you're actually going to market it. You're not going to market it as an assistive technology tool. You're going to market it as a tool that will improve the lives of everyone, and you can get everybody on board with that and get the funding and the backing that you need.
Very true. And I did want to say back on the AI thing is, I agree, it is not perfect tool. Every time I try and use it and it says a middle-aged man with gray hair, that can't be me. I don't know who it's talking about. It's important that, as you were saying, Seth and Anand, is really about when we think about the latest thing, the trending, the emerging technology, whether it's coming out to the general public and it's going to revolutionize the world, we have to make sure that that is for everybody. And throughout this conversation, we've been talking about a limited market, I guess you can say, when we talk about blindness and being a low prevalence disability. And so a lot of times there's a heavy cost to it. And Seth, you were trying to, I think, make the point about, well, if you make it for everybody, anybody can use it, then your manufacturing costs and so forth, and your market share or your market has just exploded, allows that price to come down. And a lot of times I hear when I'm out doing work in the community is about reasonable accommodations. What is assistive technology going to cost me as an employer? Maybe you can shed a little bit of light on that as well. If you were to tell an employer you're working with a client or something that says, here's what they need, how do you get over that sticker? They may feel that there's a sticker shock, but there really isn't, right?
I think sometimes maybe there is, sometimes maybe there's not. It kind of depends. I mean, for years, everybody's always said, how come this assistive technology costs so much? Whether it's bringing it to market or whether it's the consumer's price, the cost. If it's an assistive technology product like a screen reader that doesn't really necessarily benefit everybody else, the market share is pretty small, and that's why they, there is some sticker shock involved. But you get into these mainstream products like an iPhone or an Android, you got voiceover and talkback and all these different things, and now the stuff's integrated into the mainstream technology, and now we don't really necessarily have that. So I think it really depends, again, like who you're developing, who the market is. If you could say this is actually a product that's going to benefit everyone, then boom, there's your huge market there. So hopefully bigger market means less sticker shock.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, that I think that some technology could become mainstream, but some technology cannot. Like, for example, Braille, note takers, right? This is really the audience or people who are blind, not even those who have low vision and don't know Braille, right? So there's some technologies that there is nothing you can do about. They can't become kind of widespread. But on the flip side, we can work with different agencies that do provide funding. And in the US, actually, we have a lot more funding available than in many other countries. And I know it's probably a surprise for many people, but there are organizations like the Voc Rehab in every state. If the end user is a veteran, Veteran Affairs will buy devices for veterans. There's some private grants available through nonprofit organizations. There's crowdfunding platforms, and there's different financing options, including Assistive Technology Act partners in every state, that if you can't get a loan from your bank, they will give you a loan, most likely, specifically for the purchase of assistive devices. So understanding that part of our ecosystem is also critical, because there is help available. And again, it's not for everybody. Those programs have specific criteria for who can benefit from them, but there is some help available.
I also, sorry about that. I wanted to mention too, that's a really good point. And there are some really good programs available depending on what segment we're talking about, right? Like in education, there are federal quota funds that can purchase some of this technology. The Foundation for Blind Children is another example. The agency that I represent provides products on low-cost leases. I don't know if we're allowed to really plug stuff on here. I have no affiliation with it, but there's a website out there where you can go and actually get low-cost computers with like screen reader licenses and stuff like that. So beyond like the government type assistance and the like the vocational rehabilitation, which is also a great resource, there are a lot of private entities that provide some relief as well. So and also the price of some things has been coming down. Like for example, a JAWS license, right? Like you can buy a perpetual license for however many hundreds of dollars that is, but you can also buy a home subscription for $99 a year, and that is the same cost as the cost of an Office 365 license. So, that's come down into the realm of like mainstream technology pricing. It's an extra expense, but it's not $1,200 or $1,500 or something like that. And then Braille displays are critical. I'm glad you brought that up. And some Braille displays, they're very specialized, and we can't say, well, these Braille displays are going to help all the sighted people, but some of them are starting to become manufactured out of more of readily available materials. Like instead of the piezoelectric cells, are starting to be manufactured with magnetic cells that cost very much less to produce. So even though they are not themselves like a product that benefits everyone, they're starting to become manufactured by more standardized processes. Like I have a 20-cell Braille display that I paid $700 for. Now that's not a great price, but it's a lot better than $2,500. And so, sometimes that's the way the prices are coming down as well.
I think the more options we have, the better, right? Everybody has different needs and preferences and different conditions that they need to help with. So in the startup world, right, one of the questions that people ask me, like, isn't this a competing brand with this brand? And my answer is, in our industry, it's not about competition. It's about having different solutions, having a variety of them, and having options for end users. At the end of the day, we're serving the community, right? That's what we're doing. We're here because, yes, of course, we want to make money. Everybody wants to make money, but we could be doing other things and making a lot more money. So we're here because it is something that's really important and dear to us, in addition to making money. But also having multiple solutions makes each one of those solutions better. Better
Mhm.
performance, more features, faster, faster access to information. So I think, the more the better.
Yeah,
You're speaking my language.
I,
That's exactly on point. That's
I love how
100%.
you put that too, Anat, is about it's not competition and it's about serving the community. And you are focusing on one portion or preference of the community that another piece of technology didn't, right? Think about all the different brands and models of cars, for example. It's what people's preferences are in terms of comfort and speed, or what sound system or safety. So, in addition, competition does drive innovation and cost, and so it probably is a good thing that there are more companies that are working to solve some of these issues, complex issues, and some are very simple issues in terms of technology, whether it's digital accessibility or just engaging in our environment. Having those choices and being the end user of a lot of this stuff is, I'm going to check it out. I'm going to see, is there a benefit to me? Can it really open up this channel for me or this opportunity and utilize it? And if it benefits me, then great, I'll keep using it. If it doesn't, then it's something that I can share or got me to this point. Now I'm ready for the next thing. And from uh, reaching out to the business community and saying that a lot of this stuff is available. Seth mentioned, in iOS and Android, whether it's on a mobile device, platforms are building some of this accessibility features into their platform. So if you were to set up a desktop in an office, you can do it for very low cost. $300 to $500 is some of the studies that I've seen in terms of total cost for a reasonable accommodation. Now, if you want to add scanners and braille devices and things like that, certainly those can go up. But I think manufacturers are trying to reach into those target markets, make it easier for students, employers, and us as individuals in our lives to have access to that information for free or very low cost. And as I was saying at the beginning of the conversation, when companies build or utilize an inclusive mindsets, their revenues go up, their net income goes up, their culture within the organization, retention, everybody benefits from having that inclusive design mindset and inclusion in disability hiring, and so forth. We're coming close to the end of the show, and I want to leave just maybe a minute or two about where is technology going, and not you're on the development side and working with companies that are looking to launch new products. Where do you see assistive technology going?
So I mentioned the Consumer Electronics Show that I attend. This year, it was so clear where assistive technology is heading, and this is really two directions. One is AI for anything. So ability to interact with the environment and ask questions, whether it's text or people or animals or landscapes, ability to capture that image and then ask questions about it. So that's really big, and different companies approach it differently. Another big area is wayfinding, orientation, kind of an mobility, obstacle avoidance. So that's another huge area, and this is different. For example, a few years ago, where it was all about reading, access to printed information. And now that is no longer assistive technology. This is a mainstream technology, but of course, many products incorporate it. So you have, one solution that you can use for multiple things. But, there are like new products coming to market. So for example, there is a relatively new company out of Mexico called Strap Technologies, and they have a wearable device that you wear it on your chest, and that really helps you avoid obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
When you use a white cane or a dog, they are able to detect obstacles that are kind of, the bottom half of your body. But if there is an overhanging branch, that's a problem, right? So this device can detect things that are higher up and on the sides where, the dog or the cane may not be able to help you with. So those kind of technologies are really, really taking up. And I think there is potential for some of those technologies to become mainstream.
Okay, thank you. Seth?
I can't agree more about the AI. AI is not only going to revolutionize assistive technology, I would say, in the next couple of decades, and it may happen, this whole thing happened much faster than I had anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
One day, Chat GPT was just there, it felt like, and other things like it. In the next couple of decades, I would say AI will completely 100% revolutionize how every single person in this world uses technology. Part of that will benefit assistive technology users. I saw a really interesting TED Talk a couple of months ago with this gentleman who's using a prototype of a digital assistant that doesn't have a screen. And it's not an assistive technology tool. It's a digital assistant that you have a conversation with.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't display anything on a screen. Everything that we've done so far with technology, screen reading, braille displays, magnification, everything has been based on what we can see or how we can perceive what other people see. And I think artificial intelligence will completely change that. I would see us all as a population having computers that don't have screens at some point in my lifetime.
Right. The way we engage with technology certainly has changed and will continue to change. And it becomes more conversational and it becomes maybe more personal in terms of how you interact with that technology. And I love the way that you were putting that, Seth. We are just about out of time, so I want to make sure that we get in. How do we contact you guys in the future if someone wants to reach out? Seth, I'll kick off with you. How would somebody get a hold of you to learn more?
Best way to get a hold of me is to send me an email. You can do that at Seth. I'm sorry, my name is Seth. You can do it at SLeblond. That's SLEB as in Bravo, LOND as in Delta, at seeitourway, that's all one word, .org.
Awesome. Thank you. Anand, I'll give you that same opportunity.
Sure. For me, email is probably the easiest. So it's my first name, AN as in Nancy, AT as in Tom, at Assistive.consulting. Please reach out. I'd be happy to chat, even if it's just a conversation.
Awesome. And I just really want to thank you. This was a very enlightening conversation for me, as just as a consumer of assistive technology, hearing from your expert perspectives has given me a new light on how technology is used in everyday life and how organizations, big and small, can, if you think about it in the upfront, then you want to be able to increase your market share, bringing people with disabilities to the table, have the conversations, and it just continues to reinforce my belief that with the right training, the right technology, and the right attitude, people who are blind are successful in the workplace and in life. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, with your host, David Steinmetz. Be sure to subscribe to Changing the Perception of Blindness, one conversation at a time, on your favorite podcast platform. And tune in live on Phoenix Business Radio X every third Friday at 9 a.m. We hope you feel inspired by today's conversation, and maybe we've even sparked a new idea or opportunity.